Welcome to the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast. Tune in every Thursday as we share inspirational stories from the world's greatest creators, entrepreneurs, and go-getters about how they've turned life's lemons into lemonade. And now, here's your host of Lemonade Stand Stories, Charan Prabhakar.
What's going on, guys? This is Charan Prabhakar with the Lemonade Stand podcast, and I'm here with Lisa Valentine Clark, which is very, very exciting because, man, I have seen Lisa through all my social feeds for years and years and years. It's been unbelievable.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'll leave you alone.
It's been a blessing, truly a blessing in my life. My eyes have been full of joy. And you know what? Here's the interesting thing. I think I knew of you because we have a lot of mutual friends.
Yes, we do.
You know, like McLean Nelson, Will Rubio, and McLean Nelson and I, we went to high school together. So
that's right.
So I've known McLean for years and years. I've known Will since like 2003 or 4.
Yeah.
So we've been friends for a long time. But so I've known of you through those circles, even though we haven't like hung out. But did you do like Thrillionaires, or did you do any of those things? Or,
yeah. So I'm one of the founders of the Thrillionaires.
You're one of the founders of the Thrillionaires.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we started
That's
it
amazing.
100 years ago,
Gosh,
or
100 years
maybe
ago.
15, 16,
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's how kind of we connect with those guys.
And it was funny because Julia Jolly, then you
Yes.
should know as well, right?
Who
Who's
I love.
a dear friend of mine. So I knew of you and I knew of your work, and of course I knew of Chris as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what was interesting was time had passed. I moved to LA, and a friend of mine, Atod Smith, who's a dear friend of mine,
who's an incredible director.
Was telling me about, because I was producing a lot of his content, you know, and while I was in California, he told me about this company called Chatbooks. I'm like, awesome. I don't even know what this is, but sounds awesome. I'm glad you're going to be directing a commercial. And then you got that spot for Chatbooks, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the first time really, like, I think I saw you on video
Oh.
since that one time I met you. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she is so funny. This is, it's unbelievable.
Thank
and
you.
Here's the thing. I don't know what it is, but like, I just find like women comedians so amazing. I love it. I love it because like you had like such great sensibilities. And I think it's like, for whatever reason, I feel like male comedians versus female comedians, like there's just like a specialness. Like I just love to see. And so I was just so happy to see you like doing your thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. And at the same time, Jacqueline Hales, you know, Jacqueline, who's a good friend of mine, was telling me all about you. And she's like, oh my gosh, Lisa's so great.
Oh,
This is the
Jacqueline's so
best.
great.
Yeah. And so I was just like so amazed. And of course, Atod did more of those spots. So I started seeing more of those things. And yeah, you just blew up. And I was like so happy and thrilled. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the Lemonade Stand podcast. This is amazing.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes,
I'm happy
yes.
to be here.
Of course. Well, the Lemonade Stand podcast is all about the creative journey, right? Because we all had like a lemonade stand story. When we were kids, we might have had our own lemonade stand, or we may have said, all right, I want to get into acting. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my story. So how did you get into filming and acting? Like, were you younger, or did you get into it much later in life? Like,
well, you know, I did community stuff, or, you know, school plays and that kind of stuff, and performing in show choirs and swing choirs all through junior high and high school and that kind of stuff.
Did you grow up in Utah?
No, I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska. In the
Completely
Midwest.
different than Utah. Completely different than
Yeah,
Utah.
yeah.
That's
Midwest.
amazing.
Totally
Yeah.
different. Came out for school. And then I auditioned for the Garen's comedy troupe at BYU, where I went to college, and got into that and super just immersed myself into improv and improvisation. Loved that.
Yeah.
Then started having a family like you do.
Of course.
And having different creative pursuits. You know, I think I performed with the Garens until I was really pregnant with my second son. And then it was like, I'm tired. And also my husband and I moved to England for a while.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that he could go to graduate school, and we lived over there. And then when we came home, I wanted to get into something like that. And that's when some friends and I started the Thrillionaires, which was long form improvisation in different styles, and just is like one of the passions in my life still to this day.
Did Matt Matson do that as well?
Yes.
I don't know if he did that. Okay, yeah. I'm having like recollections of like all these friends of
Yeah,
mine doing
McLean Nelson and
McLean.
myself and Haley Smith
Yep.
and Brett Merritt.
Yes.
Jake Swazo.
Love Jake.
Yeah, and Matt was there, and we just had a really good time.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's like I feel like I've met all of them now, and it's just awesome. You guys are talented. And I remember going to some of your shows, and I was so impressed and so intimidated.
Oh.
But seriously, because I love comedy, but I've never really done improv. I've never really like done those things, and to be like so like focused that you can like come up with songs on the spot.
So fun.
So
It's
fun and so unbelievable, you know? So did comedy just speak to you? Did you just think, yeah, this is my jam. I love it.
Oh, I don't know. You mean like growing up?
Sure.
I mean, I think when I was younger, my dad was really funny, and I was always trying hard to make my brothers and sisters laugh. And I had funny friends growing up, always wanted to make them laugh, and kind of did dumb impressions and sketches, and always felt like I was a little goofy and a little awkward, not very sophisticated or graceful of a woman,
But of course.
was I, especially growing up. So I feel like I just leaned into that. And then when I found improv, and I was like, oh, people do this and then make us, I know. It just sounded familiar, and it sounded fun. It sounded like, you know, the faces that I would make in the mirror, or the voices that I would try out.
I love that you said it sounded familiar. I actually love that you just said that, because it's like, I don't know, from even like, I don't know, spiritual sense, if you want to call it like that. Sometimes I feel like the things that feel familiar to us, that feel like, yeah, like this just feels like, this is me. This is where I belong. This is what I need to do. You know, it's awesome.
Well, and it was the people I wanted to be around too, to be honest. You know, like when you're just playing around and doing improv, making up a song or a scene with your friends, and they're making you laugh so hard. You're just like, what? Is there anything better?
No,
There's
I know.
nothing better.
That's
all I want to do.
Completely resonate with you. Like, I remember in high school, so we know we just said that McLean and I and stuff, we all went to high school together. McLean always credits this, but he says my first theatrical release was his homemade movie that he made in high school of me, and he released it at the Timfew Auditorium. And he's like, that was your first theatrical release. I got your career going. And I'm like,
that
thanks,
sounds
man.
like McLean.
Yeah, that sounds like what you would say.
So
no, it was really great, because I had the same experience, except mine was all with like making movies, right? And so I would make these homemade movies in high school, edit VCR to VCR, just so old school.
Yeah.
But man, we had so much fun, right? Just crying, laughing, and nobody else would laugh except for us. Like we thought we were so funny. And I remember in high school, a friend of mine after high school passed away from an accident. But that same friend was the one that I would make memories with. And suddenly those videos that we were making, which we thought were just so fun and silly, ended up being completely precious, like incredible memories. And I knew if I could do that, somehow make that my life and make money doing that, that would be the dream.
The dream.
That would be the dream, you know? And so I love that you do that. And I love that you're continuing to do that, you know, and continuing to create content that's blessing people's lives. So with Chatbooks, like, did you know what was going to happen with that? Because that thing exploded, I feel, you know?
We had so much fun doing it. And when I got on set, you know, the script was so great and the concept was so great and Atot's so great that I trusted him, and I was like, what are we going to do? And when you kind of meet somebody too, that like you trust that the director is going to make it look good, then you're like, oh, well then we're going to play, you know, like then I'll trust you, you trust me, we got this.
Absolutely.
And I very quickly learned that like on set that it was going to be like collaboration was welcome, and which is great.
Yes.
Because sometimes like if a scene's not working or it's not hitting the right tone, and you can be like, well, let's just try this. Let's try this. And then you can kind of have that freedom to improv a little bit within the realm. That's really exciting to me as an actor. And so I was invested in it. They were invested in it. And we had just sort of this, you know, agreement for collaboration, which just really let a lot of fun, unexpected things happen, which is delightful to see. But I didn't realize that it was going to create a whole
thing, right? Yeah, you know, it's interesting because Atot is that way. You know, he's very, very flexible, and like the stuff I've done with him, it's just been insane. And it is. It's just like we're constantly playing, constantly making flexible choices. And I love the fact that they also got Gavin Bentley in it.
Yeah, he's so funny.
So funny.
He got to play my commercial husband.
Right. And Gavin and I have known each other since 2nd grade.
Oh, wow.
It's been crazy. So it's just very funny to see how all of these things have come together. But let's kind of talk a little bit post Chatbooks. Where did your career go from there? Because I feel like everyone started to know who you were after that.
After Chatbooks?
Yeah.
Well, Chatbooks came at a really interesting time in my life. It was just recently after my husband had been diagnosed with ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. Yeah. So actually I was taking a step back from my career just as it was kind of blowing up, to be able to care for him and to become a caregiver and focus on my family. So at that time I was one of the hosts of Random Acts on BYU TV. And so I actually stepped down from that and said, listen, I can't travel. I got to stay really, really close to home. And which was great that I had the opportunity to do that and to sort of help my husband transition from, working full time and directing, full time. And I could, help him and assist him with that, knowing we didn't know how fast that was going to progress, but as it progressed and he went on permanent disability, and that I was approached to do the radio show, the Lisa show at BYU Radio, which I hadn't really considered before. It was really great. And so that opportunity came at just the perfect time. So I jumped on that. And it gave me this sort of flexibility to be really close to home, but still support my family and have the right, kind of work schedule so that I could take care of Christopher during the day.
Now, I'm pretty unfamiliar with the disease. Are you open to talking a little bit about it and everything like that? Yeah. So would you mind telling me a little bit about what the initial stages were like?
Yeah, you bet.
And how it kind of evolved and progressed?
So ALS is a neurological disease and no known cause. There's no treatment or cure. And so everybody who gets it dies from it. And the average lifespan is 2 to 5 years from diagnosis. My husband lived for 4.5 years with it, which is considered long. And so initially, it was like dragging his leg. We had just...
So basically it's just like your body starts getting paralyzed in a sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So it blocks, and they're not sure why or how, but it's very similar. They think the connection with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS, these mysterious neurological brain diseases, once they unlock one, they hope to unlock all of them. But it interferes with your brain telling your nerves what to do, the signal. So your nerves just kind of, they short out. Your muscles, and then your muscles, because they're not getting the exercise messages. Right. Well, and messages even to be able to move, then they die. So he had a bunch of gesticulations is what they call them. So it looks like his muscles would be spasming nonstop. Started in his legs, then moved to his arms and hands, then to his voice, and then ultimately to his lungs. There's no rate of progression. Some people, it starts in their voice or their hands. Other people, it starts in their leg. There's no way to track it. There's no way to anticipate the rate of decline or the area or anything like that. So it's just this really awful disease. I call it the worst. Where they just say, good luck. What can we do to help? But there's nothing they can do. So when I filmed Chatbooks, that week we were having devastating news, and it was go on set and be funny. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Let's learn how to compartmentalize, which, you just have to do anyway. But it was really great to be able to laugh, when you need it. But, so as such, I took a step back, as offers are coming in, which is so bizarre, for, other national projects or whatever of I got to take care of my family. So, and I'm glad I had the flexibility to do that.
Well, it's so interesting because things like this really help you realize, okay, what is important in life, right?
Yeah, and what are you here for? And at the end of your life, what do you want to have it say? Because we were looking at that specifically for Chris, who's also very creative and produced a lot of plays. And in fact, when he passed, he was in pre-production for other plays, and he was writing other plays. He was still maintaining his creativity throughout the entire process, even when he couldn't move or speak, which is a huge testament to him and the kind of man he was.
We did a movie together. Chris and I, we did We Love You, Sally Carmichael, I believe, and it was just interesting to sit and kind of chat with him a little bit. And it's crazy to think like how incredible our bodies are. And yet, like, if one little thing goes wrong or just turns off, everything unravels, right? And I don't know, it makes me realize, like, sometimes we're like, oh, we want to control our lives, we want to do this, we want to do that. I'm like, do you even realize how little control you have in life? If your heart stops beating, you're gone. You know, if your lungs stop breathing, you're gone. Any number of things could happen that could potentially just take you out, right? And a friend of mine recently just passed away that McLean and I knew. His name is Colin Karchner. Oh, yeah. Do you know Colin? Yeah. I did. So yeah, he was also a high school buddy of ours and perfectly healthy, perfectly fine and everything. And the day that he passed, he was actually visiting a friend of mine, Jed Ivey. I don't know if you know Jed. He's a director friend of mine. And Jed was telling me, he said, Colin was fine that day, completely fine. And then a couple hours later, you know,
it's so devastating
it's
for
crazy.
his family.
Yeah.
So yeah, my heart goes out to them.
Such a sudden shock, you know. Now, in your instance, when you kind of saw the future in a sense of what was going to happen, how did you prepare for that emotionally and be like the happy, awesome Lisa, but also find time to mourn and grieve and take care of yourself?
You know, I'm still sort of, working through that. So it's interesting to sort of look back, but, Christopher had such a good attitude. So it was a lot easier when he was alive to sort of take his lead as he would just, allow himself to mourn. He had a really good therapist that was like, I'm just going to allow it for, 15 minutes, a day, and then get on with the day. And he tried really hard not to worry about, oh, now I can't walk. Oh, I can't drive. I can't, play the piano, all those things. Instead, he would try to focus on what he could do. Oh, well, I can still write. I can still be with my family. I can still, work. I can still, whatever it is. And so he tried to focus on what he did. And I think that takes a lot of mental focus, which is hard, especially when you're grieving and everything seems sort of like cloudy. But I do also feel like it is possible to feel a lot of emotions at the same time, and that you're not just one thing. You don't feel just one thing at the same time. And I've just seen that time and time again. And also I think the goodness of people, I really feel like God sent a lot of people to our lives to like show us how to do it and to get things done that we couldn't do. And I feel like there's such a connection between creatively, like what Chris and I like to do. He liked to direct theater, and so had to work with a lot of people in the collaboration, choreographers and lighting designers and costume designers and actors and musicians. And then I like to do, more film projects and improv, and that's collaborating with another team as well. And I feel like our lives are a collaboration, and we like to think that we're just by ourselves, just experiencing our life by ourselves. But so few things are experienced on our own, and we affect each other, I think, more than maybe I gave credit for earlier. So I feel like the grieving process for little things and for big things, was made good and bad, but with people.
Well, it's interesting because, the whole adage, like, it takes a village to raise a child, right?
But mostly a mom.
It takes mostly a mom. I always think that in my head. Small village, and then to raise a child.
Well, who's doing the laundry? Putting those little shoes on and off.
It depends.
Anyway,
what village are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
I got you. No, it's really interesting because it was cool to see, like you're saying, like how people kind of like stepped up in a sense in your own lives, and came in and showed forth that extra bit of love and compassion and whatnot. Like, I think that's what makes it so beautiful, right? I was in India probably back in 2012 when this happened, but I've got tons of family there still. I was born in India, but I grew up in Provo, which is, a culture shock in and of itself. But when I went back to India in 2012, I was visiting cousins and family and all that stuff. And I asked my one cousin, I said, okay, dude, if you could pick anywhere in the world to live, anywhere you want, where would you go? And without even blinking an eye, he's like, Pondicherry, which is the hometown that he was in. I'm like, no. Here, let me rephrase the question so you get it.
I don't think you understand.
Let me rephrase the question. The whole world, buddy. And he's like, no, I'd pick Pondicherry. And I said, why would you pick Pondicherry? And he said, because I'm never alone here. And I'm like, wow, what an insightful comment. And he just said, like, look, I've got my family here. I've got my friends here. And we always just like, we're loving each other. We're supporting each other. We're carrying each other through tough challenges or whatnot. And I remember even when I was there during that time, when I was visiting them all, they celebrated everything. Like, it was so amazing. And like, someone like lost a tooth. Great. We're going to celebrate that. Someone did this. We're going to celebrate that. And this one day, I remember this one evening, they said, okay, Charan, big news. But the way they did it with their accents, it was so funny. They're like, Charan, okay, very big news. There is a new restaurant we are going to introduce you. I'm like, great, cool. It's like, very new, came into town. You will love it. You will love it, Charan. I'm like, what is it? What tell me. It's called Pizza Hut.
Oh.
I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, yes, we will tell you all about pizzas. I'm like, okay, oh no, it's great. Thanks, sounds good.
Oh, that's
but
amazing.
Isn't it just the best? Like, they were just so excited to introduce to me what toppings are and like how you can put them on pizzas, you know? And they're my age too. Like, they're not.
But the
like,
level of joy is something to be
joy.
admired. Yes,
completely. It's like the same thing. Like
the things we take for granted.
The things we take for granted. Like, here in America, like we, I think as kids we just grew up swimming, right? They don't. And so what was interesting was when I was back there, I said, guys, we've been at home all the time. Like, we should do something physical, like just like energy to like get some exercise going. Like, Charan, yes, of course. Let's take a walk on the beach. I'm like, well, that's nice. A walk is nice. That's great. But anything else? Oh, Charan, TT, Charan. I'm like, what's TT? Like, table tennis, Charan. I'm like, okay, well, table tennis is great. Anything more? And then we finally landed on swimming, and they were so funny because they had no idea how to swim.
Oh.
So I was teaching them how to swim, which was just the most hilarious experience of my life. And I would go towards the deep end, and they're like, no, shallow, you know? And the deep end was 5 feet deep. Like, that was the end. I guess that was as deep as it went, you know?
Wow.
But I'm telling you, like, that's that level of like purity, right? And that joy and that sense of community that you get. But I don't know. I just feel like, I think like you exude so much joy in the world that it just makes me happy that you felt like, you know, people kind of came around and collaborated and helped you guys out during like a very, very tough transition in life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess as things had progressed and you kind of, you know, kept going on, were you guys just able to kind of stay the course knowing what was going to happen? And
I mean, there was no denying it, because every day that he woke up was the best it was ever going to be. And the next day, we knew it would get a little worse and a little worse every day.
Yeah.
And we tried to sort of prepare, but you don't know a timetable. So that makes it kind of difficult. And,
Sure.
and also not trying to live in the future and trying to live in the present became very, very important, and trying to enjoy as many ordinary days,
Yeah.
you know, as you can, and not have them be so high intense, you know, life and death days is a gift.
How many kids do you have?
We have 5.
5.
Mhm.
How old's the oldest?
The oldest is 22.
What?
He'll be
22? There's
he'll be
no
23
way.
this spring.
There's no way. I don't believe it. Math
Thank
does
you.
not compute. That's
and our
amazing.
youngest just turned 13.
13?
Mhm. So 5 and 10 years.
5 and 10 years. Wow. So how did they deal with everything?
Oh, they're rock stars.
Rock stars?
They have the same sort of temperament as their father, in the sense that they're very sweet and loving, but not overly sentimental. And they're quick to humor and quick
Good.
to just be there. And they helped out because, you know, we all hands on deck to help Dad.
Yeah.
You know, from scratching his nose and rubbing his feet and helping him in and out of his wheelchair and getting him dressed for the day and all those kinds of things, and feeding him for a while and working the feeding tube and the whole thing.
Yeah.
They got really used to it and kind of followed their dad's lead, which was to joke about it and to make funny memories and watch movies together and make funny videos together and
Oh my gosh,
and enjoy theater and books and all the great things of
all the great
life.
things.
Yeah.
You know what? That's so great, because it just seems like your family just knows how to be alive. And I think that's
we don't take it for granted.
well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like so many people walk around and they don't have life in them, I feel. And it's so sad when I see that, because I'm like, man, like there's so much joy out that we can still have, and so much life to live. And yeah, it's just so interesting when you're able to like see those experiences and think, okay, you know what, we're gonna make the best out of this, and we're gonna have like the best time, and we're gonna create great humor out of it. It's just gonna be awesome. So I love the fact that humor has played such a great role in your life. It's unbelievable. So let's talk a little bit about your radio show now.
Sure.
So tell me the premise of it. Like, what are you doing on it, and what's it all about?
So on the Lisa Show on BYU Radio, you can download the BYU TV radio app. You can find the Lisa Show. I hope you subscribe.
I will. Absolutely.
It's also on Sirius XM channel 143 or locally at 107.9.
Okay.
It's a 2-hour morning show that it has new original content Mondays through Fridays. Then we replay it.
Wow.
So it goes, 4 hours, and we have some really great, entertaining, inspirational, informative guests come on and sort of share the best of the best, right? So for everything from, ways to strengthen relationships in your lives, or to, we highlight charities that are doing wonderful things and have like really great inspirational stories. And we laugh and talk about things that are on the top of everyone's mind, whether you have kids or not, whether you're male or female, but just want to live a better life, and we help you do it. So I have a co-host, Richie Stedman, and we have been really fortunate just to have some really incredible people come on and who will talk to us and laugh with us and make your day a little bit brighter. And what's great about the podcast is that I find that most people download the podcast, and just kind of listen to it when they're driving their kids around, or when they're going to work, or when they're gardening or whatever. And it's just, a real positive way to look realistically at the world, but then to say, okay, how can I make it a little bit better, or my little corner of the world just a little bit better?
It's great, especially because like, did you guys keep doing the show during like the pandemic?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, absolutely.
And Richie got COVID. I was exposed like 3 times, which means that I have to like stay at home for 2 weeks, and didn't get it. But then anyway, we recorded from home. We've recorded from BYU Broadcasting. We've made it work, but we've created original content ever since the beginning, and it's been really great to work on. Oh man, that's so great. I think that what makes it so great is, especially when you're facing a very, very uncertain world, to provide a little bit more hope, to give a little bit more peace and comfort. I think it's awesome. I think it's so needed. I always like my big thing when I came back to Utah, because I was in LA for like 10 years, and I had a great go at it. Like I was doing some really cool shows. It was awesome, like popular, whatever. But in my heart, I was like, but I'm not really like sharing the positivity that I want to share. And I always had that, and it was so interesting because when I made the decision to leave LA, my agents were like, are you insane? Like your career is just taking off. And I'm like, I know, but sometimes I feel like I'm going up the wrong ladder. I feel like I'm doing not the right thing. I mean, yes, these TV shows are great, but like, how is it really making a positive impact on people's lives? And I could not answer that question. And so I came back with the full like intent of like, I want to create TV shows here, and I want to create movies here. And just that alone has made me feel a lot more fulfilled and hopeful. And I think you're right. Like, it's like, we can't influence every single person, but if we can just influence a little bit and share a little bit more light into the world, I think that's just an awesome thing, So right now, what would you say is your source of joy? My kids.
Your kids.
I think my kids. I watching them and seeing them succeed and learn something new, or laugh, or doing something that really like fulfills them, watching them grow up, to me is just like a huge source of joy. Get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Absolutely. That's
amazing. And what would you say is like the greatest lesson that you've learned that you could like impart to the world right now?
Wow.
That's a big one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
I think that life is all about relationships that we have with people, and that we have an opportunity to put out love and to make other people feel loved on this earth. And I think that's why we're here.
That what you just said is like, I feel like the core of my own life, my own way.
Oh, good.
But I just feel that like, I think like the way I look at it is like, I've always been a spiritual person, but my family grew up Hindu. I was Hindu, and then I was introduced to Christianity much later in life. But the thing that I've learned for myself is like feeling that love of God for you. Like there's just nothing that compares to that. And anytime like I've tasted that and I felt that, it's like I would want nothing more than to keep sharing that love in whatever way I can. And for me, it's like, hey, I want to make comedic movies or things like that. But as long as I can keep sharing that same message of love, I think that is like, that would make me so satisfied and would make me come alive, and hopefully will make other people come alive, So I think that's just awesome. Well, okay, final question.
Yes.
If you were to go back in time and talk to your younger self, okay, the one that's in Nebraska doing community theater and like doing all these things, what advice would you give that person?
Oh, I would be so gentle and kind to her. And I would just say, don't worry about anything dumb. And it's all pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Just, keep that good attitude and that enthusiasm and zest for life as long as you can. It will take you to great places. Don't worry.
Oh man, I love that. That's so great. It's such good advice because, a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are young folks.
Okay.
And that's kind of who we're trying to help empower and let them know, hey, you know what? It's okay. Like believe in yourself and like develop your talents and don't be afraid of like the future. I think there's some great things in store and we can create our future right now. So, well, thanks so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you
so much for having me
on the podcast. Okay. Take care.
You too.
Thanks so much for listening to the Lemonade Stand podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you use to be alerted when we release new episodes. We'd also love to hear your feedback in the reviews, and if you or someone you know has an awesome Lemonade Stand story, please reach out to us on social media and let us know. Thanks so much, and have a great day.